All good? Well, welcome everyone to the third edition of Enterprise Mobile App Development Meetup. I started this meetup 3 months ago, mainly because my startup is in this segment, this very segment of enterprise mobility. And I looked around in meetup.com to see, hey, what are the interesting meetups for enterprise mobility, and I want to join, I want to learn more things. But what I found was that most of the meetups were oriented about a specific company. So PhoneGap has its own meetup, Titanium from Accelerator has its own meetup, IBM Worklight has its own meetup, and so on. But I could not find a very generic meetup which covers all the aspects and issues around enterprise mobility. So I said, okay, I'm working out of HackerDojo anyway. Let me give it a try, and that's the origination of this particular meetup. I'm really happy that in this third edition, I'm seeing repeat faces. So thank you again for coming in, for everyone who's coming in for the second time or the third time here. May I have a show of hand of all the guys who are here for the first time? Right, bunch of you, actually a majority of you are here for the first time. So thanks for coming in. I hope today's session will be exciting, will be informative, and you'll learn new things about building enterprise mobile apps. So I want to get started before starting on the speaker sessions. Wanted to have a quick round to check everyone here is on the same page or not. Everyone here is come to learn enterprise mobile apps and not social apps or gaming apps. These apps which are meant for doing business transactions and not about another Fruit Ninja Euro app or something. So a quick poll. Oh, by the way, before I go to the poll, I want to give a big shout out to my friend Charles, right here, over there in gray shirt. So Charles has helping me with the food arrangements, all the healthy stuff, beer, which is not so healthy, and pizza, which is not so healthy, but all the healthy stuff are his idea. He's actually a health coach, and he's a very good friend of mine, and he's just helping me out. He's not a caterer or anything. He just said, you know, you're running a meetup, I'll help you eat healthy food during your meetup. So a big round of applause for Charles. And if you're looking for a health coach, that's his website, lifefirevibrance.com. Alright, so first poll. Have you built any of these yet? A responsive website, or a website that renders very well on mobile devices? Alright, few of you. A hybrid app, which is again HTML5 based app but can still access device features, or a hybrid app. Okay. How about a native app, iOS apps, Android apps, Windows, BlackBerry, Palm? Okay, have you used any of these cross-platform tools? Cordova or PhoneGap? 1, 2. Titanium from Accelerator. Alright. How about Trigger.io? None of you. Any other frameworks? Have you used any other framework to build your mobile apps? No. So if you built native mobile apps so far, what has been your platform of choice? It could be multiple, but all the guys who have made an iOS app. Okay. Android. Windows phone, WinPhone. Not a single. BlackBerry. Any old timers like me? Palm OS. Any other OS? No. Let's talk about about the UI frameworks. If you've used HTML5, have you ever used jQuery mobile? Okay. How about Ionic framework? Okay. Sencha, Kony, Kendo, Telerik. Any other framework you might have used for building cross-platform mobile apps in HTML5? None. So it looks like jQuery mobile is the most popular one here. Okay, so those were my 4 questions. Again, the point of the 4 questions in the poll was to figure out that the audience is here focused on building enterprise mobile apps and not looking to build gaming apps or social apps or any of those apps that are not doing business transactions. So the agenda for today is very, very exciting. Our first speaker today will be Ben, right here. He is from Dream Factory, and he'll be talking about a mobile REST API framework, a platform to help you publish REST APIs really easily from any of the data sources that you might have within your organization, within your enterprise. So Ben will be going first. We'll do a talk of about 15-20 minutes and a quick Q&A session of about 5 minutes. Next up will be myself, Puneet, from Verasynth, and I'll be talking about connectivity. If you're building enterprise mobile apps and you want data from your corporate IT system, which typically sit behind corporate firewalls, what is the easiest way to connect without using VPN? How can you get data from your corporate systems without using VPN into your mobile apps? So without compromising on security, without using VPN, what is the easiest way? So that's what I'm going to be talking about right after Ben. Then we'll have few announcements at the end to wrap up this meetup. We'll discuss about the future agenda, future speakers, and in the end, we'll open up for a social so that everyone can mingle around, talk about more issues related to enterprise mobility, and just socialize, eat more food, and drink more beer. So that's our agenda. Everyone ready for the first speaker? Woo. With that, I'd like to welcome Ben from Dream Factory. Ben. Thank you. We'll take a couple of minutes to switch over this mic thing.
Sound check then.
Yep. Can everyone hear me okay? No. How about now?
Yeah.
Better? Okay. Hey, before I get started, there's a raffle. So if you haven't put in your name, Ryan's up there, and we have a Chromebook and Chromecast that we're giving away. So you should definitely do that. So let's go ahead and get started. Puneet, thanks for setting this up and organizing it. This is great. I'm going to just forward this real quick. Okay, so welcome everyone. My name's Ben Busse. I'm a developer evangelist with Dream Factory. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to give everybody a demo. I'm going to start out with some slides to kind of introduce what we're doing. We make an API platform. So it's an open source API platform for mobile app development. So at a very high level, it's a piece of software that completely automates the creation of REST APIs to pretty much any data source that you can imagine. So you install it on a server. You can install it like in a Windows server or a Linux server or Mac, or you can install it on like an infrastructure as a service like Amazon, Azure. There are a bunch of them. We support about a dozen right now. And then what it does is it kind of completely provides REST API services to your data. So you install this, it's a runtime platform, you connect to your data sources, and then we provide a number of software development kits, both for HTML5 development as well as native development. It's kind of your choice. So it's really, the front end is kind of up to you how you want to do it. So the paradigm for developing with Dream Factory is quite simple. As a developer, you're developing a client-side mobile application with the technology of your choice, and you're making REST API calls to Dream Factory, and Dream Factory is running in the cloud or on a server. And Dream Factory is returning JSON data back to your client application. So it does all of the heavy lifting and kind of all of the server-side code that you would normally be developing to actually implement APIs. It's actually doing all of that for you. And then secondly, it provides a whole framework for security on top of that. So you'll see in the demo, but if you can kind of visualize it as a middleware that's connecting devices on the front end to data on the back end. And the data can be in a number of different types of buckets. You've got SQL data. We support kind of the main open source SQL data stores. We're about to support Oracle, and we'll do DB2 and some other ones as well. NoSQL, so MongoDB is a very popular one, but we support CouchDB, we support Azure Tables, DynamoDB, we'll do Cassandra, we'll do a bunch of other ones, but these are the big ones that we're supporting out of the gate now. And then files. So there's a file storage system that you can access in Dream Factory, or you can go out to S3 or other data sources that have file storage. There are various different providers, OpenStack, Rackspace, and so forth. We support a bunch of them. And then Dream Factory, the software is orchestrated. It's doing a couple of key things. First, it's creating the APIs for you, and you'll see that in the demo. And then it's providing a complete kind of user management system that gives control and security over the APIs. You can think of it as you have all of this data that you're connecting to, and you need to secure it, and you need to do that in a bunch of like quite granular ways typically. So we have a bunch of features oriented around that. And then on the front end, you have software development kits. So what's nice about REST APIs are stateless, right? You can, if you understand REST, you can make calls and get JSON or XML back. Usually for mobile, it's typically JSON. So the SDKs make it really easy to actually implement your application. They expose the APIs at runtime, make it easy to get up and running. You don't have to use the APIs, but it typically makes your life a lot easier. So you can install Dream Factory on a bunch of servers I mentioned. They kind of break into sort of on-premises if you're in a data center. You can install on the cloud servers that I mentioned. You can install on VMware, AWS, Azure. You see a bunch of them up here. The other thing is platform as a service. So you're probably hearing a lot of talk, if you kind of read the press, there's companies that are doing more of a kind of a higher level, not just the low-level infrastructure. So you can install Dream Factory on things like Pivotal or IBM Bluemix or the Cloud Foundry products that Red Hat's, all Cloud Foundry, but OpenShift is another one that you can try. So trying to really provide flexibility. Take the software, deploy it, and move it wherever you want. And then in terms of the connections, we support a bunch of the leading vendors you'll see in the demo, but it's really your choice of NoSQL or SQL there, whichever you like. And then file storage is the third. And then lastly, before we get into the demo, we have, so Puneet actually asked about some of the frameworks. And we're trying to support the really popular ones. So if you're doing HTML5 development, we support Sencha really, really well. AngularJS is very popular, so we have a bunch of SDKs that support Angular really well. And of course, jQuery is still extremely popular, even for mobile development, so there's a lot of options there. And if you're developing native apps, we have SDKs for that as well. Those are all on GitHub, and this is completely open source, so it's free to use. I'm going to talk about the various options. We provide support if you're doing enterprise development, and I'll talk about the different ways that you can get it in a moment. So, let's hop into a demo. Show it off. Okay, so I'm going to kind of cover, it's a pretty short demo because I think I have about 15 or 20 minutes, and we'll leave some Q&A at the end, but I'm going to cover kind of 4 key areas of Dream Factory and how it works. So first I'm going to talk about apps. So in Dream Factory you configure apps, and I'll go through that quickly. And then apps connect to what we call services. And when we say services, what we really mean are RESTful services. So you use Dream Factory to connect to the data. If you're an enterprise, you have tons of different data sources, and you set up these services, and then you provide REST APIs for those services. That's the second thing. The third thing is I'm going to kind of touch a little bit on security and how you can lock those, once you have those APIs set up, how do you actually lock and secure that data down in a way that's kind of easy to understand but very, very robust. And then lastly, I'm going to talk about some of the server-side capabilities. So I'm going to talk about server-side scripting and webhooks and these kinds of features, kind of cloud code, or there's different words for it, but really running kind of JavaScript on the server and doing that is kind of an important area. So, can everyone hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay. So what you're looking at is the Dream Factory admin console. So you've installed Dream Factory. I should point out that you can get it on our website, dreamfactory.com. You can sign up for a free account. That's the best way to kind of start using it. And once you're in there, you set up applications. So applications they can be everything. You have a couple different options. An application can be running inside the server, like if you're developing a web application that's running on the server. That's one option. So here, I could look at this very simple to-do list application, which is a simple to-do list written with Angular. This is running inside of Dream Factory. And then I could open up these files, and I can actually code in the browser if I want, or I could develop locally and upload these files if I wanted to. So there's different ways to kind of set all that up. But when we're talking about mobile development, generally speaking, you might be doing a responsive web application, so you have your binary stored in here. But you might actually be doing more like a native development model, or you're using PhoneGap, for example. And you want to build your application, and you want to point it and access REST APIs. So when you set up your applications, what it really is for that use case, the second use case is you're providing the app name as the API key, and then you're making API calls. And that's how that all works. So when you set up an application, you decide, okay, is it going to be native? Am I going to enable cores and it's going to access REST APIs, or am I going to host it on the server? It's kind of your choice. And then one of the key things is we have all of these different SDKs. So these are on GitHub. You can click on the different options. And what that's all about is just easily connecting to the APIs and the services that you set up. And we'll show that in a moment. There's also a quick start, which is kind of a really good way to spin up. You can follow, it's like a couple steps. It creates your application, and then it automatically provides the SDK, so you don't have to do any of the config. You can actually start making API calls from your computer right away without understanding anything. So that's a really useful feature. Now, so let's say you set up these applications. So the idea is that with Dream Factory, it's a piece of software that's connecting to whatever data you want, okay? So it has a native database. It has a MySQL database that you can use, like if you're prototyping and you're not connecting to any database, you can use that. But typically in an enterprise scenario, you need credentials, you need to set up services. And as you saw in the slides, there are really SQL, NoSQL, file storage, and then proxying into remote web services, like if you want to connect to Dropbox or some other web service, you can easily do that as well. It's providing all of that capability for you so that you don't have to do it. So here what I'm going to show is just in a very trivial way how you would create a new service. So if you wanted to, for example, set up a remote SQL database, you would log in here, you'd go to services, you'd click on create new, and you'd select remote SQL DB. And it takes literally about 60 seconds, as long as you know your credentials, to be connected to your own SQL database. Now, where is that SQL database running? It can be running anywhere. It can be running behind a firewall, it can be running on Amazon, it can be running on your laptop. You just need the credentials to get to it. And the credentials are securely stored on the server inside of Dream Factory. So that's the key idea, is that you're putting your credentials in. You give it an API name, you give the vendor, if it's MySQL, you would select that. And then you put in your connection string and so forth, and then you're connected. So that's sort of how that works. As you see here, there are a bunch of different options. So you've got remote SQL, NoSQL, Salesforce.com, local and remote file storage. We also provide an email service. You could add your own email service if you wanted. we're trying to cover a lot of ground there and kind of get into all of the backend data sources that you would need. So an example of the configuration, like one that's actually running, is, so here's MongoDB, a quick demo. So you can see it's a NoSQL database. I've given it an API name, MongoDB. I've given it a connection string and a database name. With Mongo, you can have different databases, of course, with different names. And then a username and a password. And once I've done that, Gene kind of auto-creates this API. Normally, if you were using Mongo, you would actually write your own REST API. What we're suggesting is that APIs for SQL and NoSQL file storage are effectively well-defined. You shouldn't have to really write your own REST API. So that's kind of the key idea behind creating all of these different services. So once you've created your services, that's all well and good, but then what do you do next? So the thing before you write an application is you really want to kind of look at the API docs. And the API docs are the various methods, everything that the APIs that you've created, everything that they can do. So Dream Factory, I'll talk about users in a second. It has a full-blown user and role management system with APIs for that, so you can self-register users from your application. It has a DB API, so this is the native database, which is a MySQL database. It has APIs for every single service that you add. So here's Amazon's DynamoDB, which is a NoSQL data store. And as you look at these, you'll notice that the structure of all of the URIs is pretty much the same. So what we've done is we've virtualized the services, right? So like VMware for server virtualization, we're kind of like API virtualization or REST API virtualization. We've standardized all of those APIs. And if you look at it, there's one of the things you typically want to do before writing your app is see like, okay, well, what are all of the APIs and what do they do? So you can start interacting. We use a tool called Swagger, which is an API documentation tool. So it's kind of nice. And you can just start interacting, and you can see what the REST API request looks like and then what the response looks like. So here, I'll actually go down. One thing I try to explain is people who know REST service as well, or learning about them often ask the question, so like how do I query a database the same as I would with SQL? Or can I use stored procedures and that kind of thing? And the answer is actually you can do very sophisticated queries with REST APIs from the client. You can do parent-child relationships, you can filter, you can sort, you can limit the results. And this user interface is all about showing you how to do all of those things. And then if you need to go farther, then you can use a server-side scripting, which I'll show later. We also have stored procedure support. So if you wrote a bunch of stored procedures that are really complex, you don't want to rewrite those. We integrate with those. So you can make an API call that calls the stored procedure with parameters and then returns the data back in JSON or XML format. So here I'll do a very trivial query. Mongo comes with this particular Mongo database has a collection called zip codes, which has, a lot of records in it. So I'm not going to return all of them. But I'll do something very simple so you get the idea of what the URL request and the response looks like. And I think this has state data, I think. Let's see if this works. So what I'm doing here is I'm putting in some parameters into the interface. And then I'm going to make a request. And this is going out to a MongoDB database that's running somewhere in Georgia, I think, on somebody's server at our office in Atlanta. So what you're seeing here is the formation of the URL request, right? You've got the URL of my DSP, which is Dream Factory Services Platform. The structure is /REST, so you can think of all of these services as a REST tree. It's a hierarchy of different REST services. The name of the API, which is MongoDB, the name of the collection, which is zip codes, and then I've appended, or the system has appended what I put in, a filter string, which is state equals Georgia in this case, and then a limit. So the point of all this is you can actually do very sophisticated queries with APIs, and the whole point of this is to do a lot of that heavy lifting for you so that you don't have to write the REST APIs yourself. So that at a high level is the APIs. So then the question becomes, okay, that's useful. Then how do you actually secure these APIs? And the way you do that, if you're writing an application, actually, I'm gonna pop in. let's see if this will take us up the road. When you're writing an application, right, you have the APIs that you created, you have the application that you built, and then you're using all of these services. So how do you actually secure these services? I'm going to actually hop into a different, just sticking for some reason. Let's see if this will load. This is running on a, unfortunately, on a slow web server right now. So let's see if this will load. Let me just talk through it. So one thing you need to do when you're developing your application, you've got the APIs written, or they're provided for you. So then how do you actually secure those? So you want to do that kind of at the table level in one case, right? You have a bunch of tables and you need to make sure that not every user can get in. So the way we do that is with roles. So here's a particular role. And the role system in Dream Factory, we're doing integration with LDAP and Active Directory and all of these other systems. You get the basic idea. But when you authenticate, you get a session token. And based on who you are, each user has a role. And the roles govern access to which applications. So here, this particular role has access to just a few applications, and here we're administering all that. Service access, and this is what I want to spend a little bit of time on just explaining. So the applications, it's decoupled. They're using services, but then you need to secure the services. So the services that show up here, remember I was showing you the APIs. All of the APIs show up here. And then, for example, let's take this database. This database has a bunch of tables in it. So here's an account table. So what I'm going to do is, based on this user's role, I can set the different CRUD permissions on that particular table. So that's kind of at a high level the table construct. Often what you want to do, though, is you want to lock down the records within a table. So we support server-side filters, we call it, which is the ability to go down and actually add kind of more advanced filters, so based on any business rule. So a common one is, only let users creating records read, update, and delete those records, right? That's a simple one. And so without writing source code on the server, you can do that very easily in Dream Factory. You simply, in this case, you would just, if you had a field, like owner or something like that, you would literally just put in the name of the field, and then you would, I just clicked off there. Sorry about that, go back. Sorry about the slowness in the dev server. Let's wait until this loads. But the point of it is that you can actually specify the business rules at a very granular level, both for record level security and for table level security. You may want to go beyond that, and you can do things like stateful security with scripts, which I'll show in a moment. So if you have like your database state changes, this isn't an application server. It's a REST API server. So you still need to do those kinds of things on the server side. And we're enabling all of those capabilities. So that's kind of at a high level how all of that works. The last thing I should mention is lookup keys. So that's a feature where if you have, say, an Oracle database and you've already put in all of those business rules for security, you put in different lookup keys and you have different roles, we let you inherit all of that as well. So you can actually mirror the roles in Dream Factory and then enable lookup keys, and then based on that role, all the API calls go to the database and say, oh wait, does this person have a lookup key or not? So you've got server-side filters, server-side scripting, and lookup keys at a high level. So the fourth thing I want to cover real quickly is webhooks, scripts. So scripts are based on this notion of events. So each API, you make a request, you get a response. So every single API in Dream Factory that you set up has a pre-process and a post-process, and you can attach scripts to them. We currently support JavaScript, and we'll do PHP, Ruby, maybe other languages in the future, but JavaScript is a well understood kind of language for both client-side and server-side implementations. So here what I'm just going to show is a very simple example. So let's say that I want to attach a script to a particular, I don't know, let's look at this DB right here. So I've got all these DB API calls, and there's a very simple table. Let's just look at this to-do list, which I showed in the beginning. And so you'll see like all of the different methods. So these are all the actual method names for the APIs. And I could do a post process. So if I wanted to, this is a trivial kind of example, but I could make a request to do a get on a to-do item. It returns JSON back as an array of items in the list. And then I can write a JavaScript routine of arbitrary logic, whatever I want, which then manipulates that data that's coming back in JSON format, and then routes that modified return, that modified JSON back to the client application. So this is the classic use case for this is things like field validation, workflow triggers, like you have an event and you want to trigger a push notification. It's great for that. It's great for triggering things like emails, or sort of very sophisticated workflow application. The other thing is we've gone a little bit beyond that. We've kind of said, well, it would be nice if you could write an arbitrary script. So the idea here is you can write custom scripts. So the notion there is you write some piece of logic that can do anything that you imagine, and your client application passes in whatever arguments or parameters your script needs from the client as a REST, as an API call to the platform. The script does whatever it does. In this case, it's doing something very simple. It's adding two numbers, which you would pass in as params in your API call, and then returning that. So this is really interesting. Like if you're doing lots of different use cases, but particularly for integration. So if like you're, for example, logging into SAP, you can write a routine that makes an API call to your URL, gets back a response like an XML. You can inject whatever the username and password is into that XML, write in the script, and then post it to a different URL, get a token back, and then use all the APIs that you've configured with Dream Factory to then go and make calls back and forth between the client and the server. So that's the basic idea. The other thing, just quickly, just a few more minutes, we've got a lot of people ask, let me see if this one locked down. We've got schema as well. So a lot of times if you're just prototyping, you want to use a database. So it comes, as I mentioned, it comes with a database, and you can add schema to that very, very easily and start prototyping. And then you can take all of this and you can export it out and move it between different cloud servers. And you can also swap out the databases. So that's the whole idea, is providing APIs and total freedom to pick what cloud you want, what database you want, and just use RESTful methods to get to your data. So that's it at a high level. And a couple more things. Just a quick recap. I mean, I like to there's a lot in the demo, so I just like to kind of summarize what we talked about. It's an open source package. Dream Factory is an open source package. Mobile app dev, it's a middleware platform for kind of any device, connecting any device to any backend server. What's good about it is it really speeds up your development time a lot, enables portability between clouds and servers, so you're not locked into any one particular cloud. You can move around very easily. And then it's got some very good security, reliability, and scalability features. And then really, I think focusing in on the hard problems that it solves is really creating the REST APIs and taking all of that you normally have to do manually. The client SDKs really help with your development quite a bit. The role-based table and record-level access control is really important. And then the server-side scripting, it's very simplistic to say, well, I'm going to write a mobile app, and it's not going to have any business logic on the server. So we're trying to enable all of that. There are a bunch of, so this will be shared, and I'll put this up on SlideShare. There are a bunch of different resources to get started. I guess the easiest thing is we just show you in 2 minutes, I think, where you would want to get started. If you want to try it, I would go to our website, and you can sign up in the upper right-hand corner. Like I said there, it's a free account, so it's hosted by us for you. Unlimited API calls. It's really like a developer sandbox to try it out. If you like it, you can, the easiest thing is to go to our partner Bitnami. So Bitnami is a company that does packages for deployments. So all of the packages for Azure and Amazon and the WAMP stack, MAMP stack, all of those different stacks are all there. All of the code is on GitHub. There's a wiki on GitHub, which I strongly recommend people actually go to the blogs. So this is an index of every blog. We've done tons of tutorials for all the different frameworks. That's a good thing to look at. We have a forum that you can ask questions on. You can also just email our support team and so forth. YouTube channel with lots of screencasts that the team's done. I've done some of them to help you get started. And then we have, a lot of times people ask, well, is there product support? We have free 30-day support. You can use the forum for free all you want. And then we have different options on pricing. So if you're using this for enterprise deployments, you should buy a support package and we'll support you through and make sure that everything works. And you can also contribute to the project, I should mention. So if anybody gets into this and they want to add, it's an open source project, please contact me directly and you can do that. And that's my contact information. So that's it. I think we're at about 20 or 25 minutes. Any questions? Any questions?
Q&A. If anyone has any questions for Ben.
So if I understand correctly, no code is being generated. All the codes go to Cloud Factory on this evaluation, kind of just in time.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a run. It's all happening at runtime.
Okay.
Yeah. So really, the core of the source code is really around the virtualization. So what we've done is we've said, look, all of the SQL data stores, we've written a layer of software that abstracts all the APIs for those, and we've done the same for NoSQL. And it's just like we're adding more and more of these. That's the core kind of thing. And then the security on top of that is also about kind of so you don't have to write all the security basically.
Do you also do API versionings?
It's on the roadmap. I should mention this. So the enterprise product is coming out in Q1. So if you go and sign up for Dream Factory on the website, you'll notice it's multi-tenant. You can spawn as many DSPs as you want. It's shared. It's running, I don't know, there's probably 100,000 DSPs in there. Lots of developers are using it. The enterprise version will be your own version of that. So you put it on a server and you spawn as many DSPs as you want. It'll have Active Directory integration. That will be in the enterprise product. It will have a bunch of other pretty important features, API versioning, API reporting, DevOps-oriented things like looking at all of the API calls, which apps are being used, some basic kind of metrics there. We're really focused on people who are doing deployments in enterprises. How do they get the software? How do they do it? How do they measure scalability? All that. So that's all coming down the line, but it's ready to go. The core product is really, it's there. It's ready to use.
Any other questions? Well, let's have a big round of applause for Ben.
So Ben's presentation was very exciting. I took away a couple of really important things. Number one, the concept of virtualization of APIs. How cool is that? You can have different data sources which can be accessed with the same API structure. So that concept itself was very, very interesting to me. The second thing was all of this is open source. I'm not going to ask him how they're making money, but it's all open source, so very, very nice for the whole community. The third thing, actually, I really found interesting was how they are able to declaratively add security at a very fine-grained, granular level, row level for SQL databases. So without writing code, you can secure access at row level to your SQL databases. That was very interesting to me. So thank you again, man. Again, a big round of applause for them. While I'm setting up, I just wanted to say that all this camera and the fancy equipment you see is from Dream Factory. From my side, you'll see this little flip camera in the middle. That's my level of technology. Anbu, if you can raise it. That's my camera. So that's from us. Everything else is from Dream Factory today. So I'm spending time wrapping up myself with multiple microphones. Okay, so shifting gears. So you saw in Dream Factory how easily they are solving getting access to your SQL data, your files, NoSQL databases, anything in a very, very standard manner. So that's a real important problem in the enterprise, and Dream Factory is solving it for you. Now where does Verasynth come in? Verasynth is my startup. We've been working on it for several months now. My co-founder Dave Saxby is my CEO, is sitting right behind over there. So what we said was getting access to data in a systematic manner, like what Dream Factory is doing, is really important. But the other aspect for enterprise mobile app development is just connectivity. Most of the systems that are inside your enterprise are behind a secure firewall, whereas all your mobile devices are out there in the public internet. These systems, for example, Oracle Financials, SAP's supply chain system, they were written with access of intranet in mind, meaning unless the employee is within the physical boundaries of the organization, or his device, which might be a desktop or a laptop, is VPN'd in, they cannot access those systems. That's how the world operated for forever, and it has been challenged by this new mobility, enterprise mobility wave that is coming in. Where they are saying the mobile devices are mobile. They could be inside the enterprise, they could be out there in public internet, but they need to be connected to these systems all the time. And we cannot compromise on security at all. So how do we solve this problem? Where on the one hand, the IT executives want data instantly. On the other hand, they want it to be as secure as VPN that they've been pushing on laptops and desktops. So that's the problem that we are trying to solve in our startup. So this is the old world, the desktop world, where you would ask your employees to VPN first before they can access any of your corporate systems. So on the left hand side, number one is your websites on the desktop. Number two is a VPN connection. And number three, on the right side, is the access to your system resources. And one thing with VPN was, it's an all or nothing game. Once you are VPN'd in, you get access to all your systems. It's not like this particular app requires these specific system accesses. No. Once you are VPN'd in, you get everything. So here are the problems with that structure. On the mobile side, every device has had VPN capabilities, including iPhone from the very beginning. But that's a separate set of username passwords from your app. So it completely kills productivity. User is asked to enter 2 sets of passwords before they can execute their application. The second issue is, because of the nature of mobility, the connection is spotty. Even within Hacker Dojo, all the guys who are working in Hacker Dojo would agree. You take a laptop from here to the lounge and sometimes the connection drops. When the connection drops, the VPN drops, and the user is asked to re-enter the password again and again. This completely kills the productivity on mobile devices. Second one is the point I already mentioned. VPN does an all or nothing connection. Once you are VPN in, you get access to all your company resources. even if the app does not require those resources. And the third problem with VPN is that it's a hardware solution. You need to deploy a hardware inside your data centers to provision VPN to all your devices. Hardware by their very nature are not easy to maintain, not easy to upgrade, not easy to deploy at all. Once a IT developer requests hardware access, they know the round trip time to get that deployed in the data center could be anywhere from 6 weeks to 6 months. So those are some of the real problems with VPN. So in the new mobile world, you want instant access. Number one, it's mobile app. Number two is it says no VPN. We want to access the corporate system security, but no VPN, please. And number three, hey, we are writing a small little app with the idea of there's an app for that. That little app is supposed to do one little function, show me a certain report, help me do some purchase order approvals, some of the very little functions that are required for that particular app. I don't need the complete blanket access to all system resources. I need very app-specific access to my IT resources. So here's the problem. Developers, especially consumer-side developers, would say, hey, okay, no big deal, we'll just publish REST APIs onto public internet. Those REST APIs are very specific to those mobile apps. They have limited access to our system. And mobile apps will just connect directly to these endpoints and consume the data. Now that might be true if you are an indie developer, if you are a small organization. From a large organization standpoint, that's a non-starter. You cannot grant access on public internet which directly have connection into your highly secure IT systems, which might be your HR systems, your financial systems, or any other system. So putting out public endpoints on the internet which access your IT resources is a complete no. Yes, there are possibilities to harden it, to make it much more secure, more robust. There are different ways. But in general, if you ask any CIO, they would be terrified by putting public endpoints which access their internal resources. So that's a big problem. There's one more problem. IT guys, unlike all of you cool hackers out there, they think in terms of subroutines. They don't think in terms of REST APIs and AJAX calls and whatnot. They say, I have on my rightmost side a subroutine called, let's say, get tax rate, which takes one parameter called state. And I want to be able to call that same subroutine from my mobile side. I don't want to go through these green boxes in the middle where I need to now publish a REST endpoint and then on my mobile side have the same subroutine but it calling doing an AJAX call to consume that REST endpoint. Is there a way to avoid this? So again, the problem here at number 5 is IT developers think subroutines, not REST APIs. And one more important point, I'm building a mobile app. As I'm building my subroutine on the server side called get tax rate, how do I build offline support for this API? Suppose there's spotty connection or an airplane mode and I really need the cache data on my mobile for a better user experience. How do I do it? They don't even know where to get started. So they have to think about server-side APIs, they need to think about publishing REST endpoints, securing them on the mobile side, consuming them by AJAX call, and building offline support for their little bitty get tax rate API. So a lot of things required before they can have a very good user experience on mobile. So here's the solution. The solution is from our startup. We are calling this Dropbox for APIs. It's as simple as Dropbox. How many of you use Dropbox on your personal laptops for online storage? A lot of you. So you know the simplicity of Dropbox. You install the Dropbox agent in your machine, which creates a folder called My Dropbox. And as soon as you drop any file into that folder, it magically is backed up. You don't need to do anything else. It's backed up online, available for you for later access. So that was the simplicity that we wanted for API publishing. Going back to that example of get tax rate, on the rightmost side, number ones, we have a subroutine called get tax rate on the server side. Number two, there is some magic going on. And on the number three, on the leftmost side, is your mobile app, which gets the same subroutine, the same name, same parameters, same semantics. Now, can we do this number two, the magic part? That's what we are doing in our startup. This is our overview of our solution, how we are going about it. On the right hand side, you'll see a Dropbox folder, user Joe My API. This is the folder that you create on your server side, and you'll install the Verasynth API server, which is the equivalent of your Dropbox agent that you might have installed on your laptop. So once you install that agent, it does all the magic for you. So it looks at that folder, the My APIs folder. It parses all your code for any language that supports reflection. It figures out all the public APIs in that folder. It figures out all the parameters for those APIs. And then it creates an SDK for you. That's number three, where we are creating a mobile SDK for your server-side APIs. And on number four, that mobile SDK is used by your mobile apps, which also includes offline support for those APIs. And most importantly, number two, this whole proxy that we have sitting here is blind to your data. We do not get to see the data passing through our servers. So it's completely secure, unlike Cloudflare. How many of you know Cloudflare? Just a couple of days they announced a new feature called keyless SSL. Big announcement all over the news. The reason for that announcement? Because Cloudflare was not blind. Cloudflare is not blind. It's a proxy solution which really helps you prevent DDoS attacks on your resources, but it gets to see the data passing from external devices into your corporate network. So blind proxy is very important because Cloudflare realizes none of the financial institutions are taking up Cloudflare. Anyone who is moderately concerned about the security of their data on the wire is not uptaking Cloudflare solution. So we wanted to build blind proxy from the get-go, and our solution is completely blind to the data passing through it. So here are the benefits. We see 8 of them here, and we've got much more benefits. I don't want to bore you with these. We've got 15 benefits of this whole solution. Most important, VPN is not required. If you go back to the solution and you see the orange arrow, which is going outbound from your corporate systems to public internet, it's an outbound connection. Yet it supports full duplex data transfer. We are utilizing that framework, which is the tried and tested network security architecture in the enterprise called the DMZ architecture, demilitarized zone architecture, where a highly secure system never allows an inbound connection from a lower security system. A high security system always has an outbound connection into a lower security system. So we are utilizing the same architecture to secure your corporate IT systems. So VPN is not required. It's a pure software solution, unlike VPN hardware. And it's as simple as Dropbox. Just put your APIs in one particular folder. It's secure because of the DMZ architecture. It has limited system risk exposure, which is the very nature of any API. If you have a very specific API for your very specific mobile app, you're guaranteed that you are not getting a blanket access to all resources within your enterprise. So it's a very, very important point from a security standpoint. Number 6, no inbound firewall code. Due to the outbound nature of the connection, we are not asking you to open another firewall incoming into your enterprise. There is a simple 443 outbound HTTPS connection requirement, which is pretty much open in any system. Number 7, reduce capital expenditure on VPN hardware. It's a pure software solution. No need of provisioning hardware. Number 8, co-inhabit with existing MDM and SSO solution. So we realized that any significant enterprise would already have made investments in some mobile device management solution, such as Mobile Iron, AirWatch, one of those. Or at the least, they would have some investment in single sign-on. They might have their own legacy single sign-on, or they might have CA's solution or Oracle's identity management solution. One of those might be there already. So we are not imposing another sign-on system on them. We will co-inhabit with the existing system. Reduce level for developing mobile SDK. You actually are not putting any effort on mobile SDK. It's automatically generated for you. The level of effort goes down drastically. Improve focus on server-side business logic. Any significant enterprise app has a bunch of logic sitting on the server side. It's doing transactions, it's doing validations, doing some kind of defaulting. Most of that logic falls on the server side. There's minimal logic on the client side. So the IT developers continue to focus on the server side logic. They don't have to build a lot of stuff on the client side. Improved app quality. Now that you're writing less code, the chances of less bugs, which means the quality of your app goes up. Enhanced offline user experience. As I said, for each of the APIs that you write on the server side, not only are you getting a client-side API with the same name, same parameters, same semantics, for each of those APIs, there is automatic offline support. What that means is the results of that API call are cached, so that the next call, if the device is offline, we can serve from the local cache. That's the read part. On the right side, if you try to push some data into your enterprise and the device is offline, we do the queue management. We queue it up in the local storage of the device, and we monitor when the device comes back online and then sync up with the remote server. So all that comes free, but just writing your server-side API. Great for developer productivity. You are writing very less code and are able to get much more out of your development efforts. Number 14, exceeding compliance requirements. So within an enterprise, security compliance is really, really important. And there are several laws from Sarbanes-Oxley to other certifications. In this solution, because we are using tried and tested DMZ architecture, we are actually exceeding many of these compliance requirements. And number 15, very important, we are a blind proxy. The data passing through our DMZ servers are not visible to us, so we cannot tap onto your secure data. So those are the things that we are building in Verasynth, our startup. I wanted to give a live demo, but let me do a quick time check. 7:15. How many of you are interested in looking at a live demo where you write server-side APIs and magically get client-side stuff. All right, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, wow, you guys are paying attention. So let me, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to write a client-side web page, very simplistic web page, which has a playlist. So some hard-coded data on that web page. And I'll show it on Chrome, not on the mobile app. And then we'll say instead of this hard-coded data on the web page, I want to get data from a server. And we'll write a server-side API in a folder like my Dropbox folder, and then instantly call that API from the client side. So we'll write server-side code, a little bit of code which sends some data, start the server, the Dropbox server, and it should be magically available on the client side. Now to make it even more interesting and to show that we have only an outbound code and no incoming data coming in, we are going to have the server running on my laptop. So imagine this laptop becomes a server and your mobile app could be out there and it is able to access resources from my laptop without doing much effort. So let's try to get it done. Again, fingers crossed, live demo never works for me. I'm going to try it one more time.
Does the client have local data storage?
So the question is, does the client have local data storage? We are using JavaScript HTML5, and HTML5 has the local storage now available. So that's the equivalent of local storage on the mobile device. So although we are using Chrome here for the demo, imagine this is running on your mobile hybrid app, and it will get access to all the local storage APIs that HTML5 already has.
And in your presentation, can you focus a little more on the outbound? You're saying it's only outbound, right?
Yeah. So I'll show you how it's only outbound. Too small. Can you see now? More? Is this good? So this is a very simple web page. It has a HTML tag. There's a script tag which is actually the library that is automatically generated from us. Then it has a body tag, and it has one div which is empty right now. The ID of the div is list. And then we have this little script which is populating the div with this playlist. So what I'm going to do is this, as you can see, this JavaScript code. Give me a second. So as you can see, this JavaScript code is putting data inside that empty div, and the data is coming from this hard-coded set of values in this array. So the playlist array is on the page itself, so everything is local. So once I refresh this page, this is the exact list that you see on this code. Everyone with me? Do you understand what's going on here?
So I'm showing the code which is rendering some page. The data in the code is exactly what the data you see on the Chrome page. Now this data is local to the page, it's hard-coded. Now what we want to see is, how can we get this data from a server? So this is my server API. I'm calling it get playlist, but for showing that it is real time and everything, I'm going to ask you for a prompt as a suffix, just a random prompt. Any suffix that I can add to this API name to make it legitimately new. Suggestions? New. All right. So we just created this public API on the server. This API is residing in my APIs folder, which is on my laptop. Okay, and this code, this API, which is on the server side, is just sending some data. There's a playlist data, as you can see, in JSON format, which is Bollywood, pop, and hip hop. Whereas on the page right now, you see a different playlist, which is a local playlist hard-coded on the page. So this API, we will this is the start of my Dropbox agent in some ways. And this agent, as soon as I start, parses the code in my Dropbox API folder, figures out all the public APIs, and publishes them as a mobile SDK with an outbound connection. There are no inbound. In this setup of Hacker Dojo and my laptop, we needed to probably open inbound ports to access my laptop here. So this will be an outbound only connection from my laptop going out to that way. And on this page, which is in Chrome, I'm going to now call this API.
Puneet, the stuff you showed us, you have a server on your laptop?
Sorry?
Is the server on your laptop?
Yeah, it's a agent. Like, imagine I installed Dropbox on my laptop. So that is the agent I just started after changing the name of the API.
So you're running both the client for this demo, you're running both of them on your laptop?
Only the server is on my laptop. The client is out there in a AWS server. So get playlist new is the name of that API. We do put it in a namespace called fast.ix for legacy purposes. Where does this come from? Playlist dot. So this comes from playlist.js. This is the name of the file in which your API resides becomes part of the namespace. So if you have a file called finance.java, the API will be inside finance.that namespace. So we look at the name, the file names, and make it part of the namespace for you. So let's see if this thing, I just saved it. This particular save, this Chrome page is hosted on AWS server, and I'm going to refresh Chrome so that it calls this API instead of the hard-coded list. So the hard-coded list is still up there. It's being overwritten here by the data coming from the API. Make sense? And that when I refresh, it will run that API for us. And this time it gets the data which is on my laptop. So this particular server is on AWS. It made a call from AWS to my laptop to get these three values. There is no inbound connection coming to my laptop. It's only an outbound connection And in real time, I am able to get not only a SDK, I am able to make the call instantly. So that is really important. The ease of deployment is extremely important. You sign up with us, get your API key, install the Dropbox agent, and you can instantly start generating mobile SDKs from your server-side APIs. That beats a hardware deployment solution by miles. Think about provisioning the same thing with a hardware solution with competitors like IBM Data Power or Layer 7, some of the other guys, Mokana Atlas. Those are providing a hardware solution so that you can securely connect your mobile apps to your corporate IT systems behind firewall. Their hardware solution is not just about deploying a server in your data center. The second aspect to it is you build your apps in a very specific way such that all outbound connections go through that hardware box. So not only are you imposing a hardware solution, you are imposing this framework on your mobile developers to build their mobile apps in a certain way. And we bypass all that. It's as simple as Dropbox, install it anywhere in your tiered security architecture within your organization, and it will just work. It will work instantly. It's very easy to uptake, and you can write any API with any name, any set of parameters, and magically the same APIs appears on your mobile side. So that is Verasynth. How cool is that, mister? Any questions? We'll do a quick Q&A.
So if somebody would want to use Dream Factory on your solutions, can they cooperate?
Excellent question. So tying the two presentations together, the question is, if somebody wants to use Dream Factory and our solution, can it work? Absolutely, it can work. And if you are interested, talk to Ben and me separately, and we will make it work for you. Any other question?
What's your business model?
Okay, now we are talking about Dave here. My CEO standing here. The question is, what's your business model? So the business model, I don't want to step on his shoes. He is responsible for business model and stuff. I'm the technical guy here. But it will be very simple, metered pricing based on the number of API calls that are going through our framework. We can have that kind of pricing to begin with. But the pricing can be adjusted in many ways because we can adjust it per seat, per employee. We know, it's going through for which employee is accessing these APIs. We can do a per seat licensing. We can be more creative in pricing when it comes to, let's say, per device pricing. How many devices are connected to your enterprise? So, to answer your question, because we are early stage, we are going just with a metered pricing, but in future, who knows? Any other questions?
The call from the client to your API server is inbound, right? So I'm a little confused about your terminology when it comes to inbound and outbound.
Yeah.
So it is inbound. It's going outbound from the client to your server, right?
Right. So the question is the confusion around how can you have an outbound connection and yet the API call is made inbound, right? So that's the secret sauce. The secret sauce is how can you have an outbound connection and yet in real time any request coming from the mobile device is executed on the server side. And I will talk about that maybe sometime in future. Let me get over some of our IP stuff here and I'll get you the details. But anyone would be able to really easily guess it. We are doing it at socket level. It's a socket-based solution. Any other question? Okay, so before I wrap up, extremely important, the raffle is for a Chromebook and a Chromecast who has not entered their name yet for the raffle? And, okay, proud. And who has entered multiple times? Okay. Well, I want to thank everyone for coming in. I'm going to hand it over to Ben for doing the raffle for both of these things. I again want to thank Dream Factory and Ben and his colleague. I'm sorry, missing your name. Brian. Thanks, Brian, for coming in, helping us organize. Chip for doing the videography.
Great.
Most importantly, the food and beer is also sponsored by Dream Factory. A big round of applause for Dream Factory. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Ben. We'll do the regular dance for the microphone now.
Right, hold up.
Here, let me have you do this.
Actually, a business card.
That's great.
Thanks for that presentation. That was helpful. I think the live demo was good. Awesome. We'll get the box. All right, I'm going to pick two out of here. Let's do the Chromecast. Yeah, let's do the Chromecast first. All right, I'm not looking. Ready?
Hold on. Anybody pay any money?
Is it adequately shuffled up?
Okay.
All right. Let's see, I'm probably going to get the pronunciation. Taya or Tia, T-I-Y-A. Delaware? Congratulations. Enjoy.
Thank you for attending.
Okay. All right, the Chromebook, let's go. Got one. All right. Jenny, XU.
Do you need an ID?
I do.
can
Sorry.
show you.
There you go.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you. Wow.
Enjoy.
Great, thank you.
Okay, is that any other announcements or? Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Dream Factory, for a wonderful giveaway. I wish I got the Chromebook. Congratulations, Jenny. So, to wrap up, I want to again say that this is just my third edition of this meetup. We are just getting started. I'm just excited by the excellent, fantastic response for this meetup. Every time getting a lot of people to show up, many repeated faces, thank you. What I want is help run this meetup more effectively in the future. Now I'm already recruiting Anbu, who's doing my little flip me no videographing here. He's just a regular attendee and he's been helping me with this thing. But I want to get more help in terms of signing up speakers who are really exciting for enterprise mobility. Folks from, let's say, PhoneGap, or folks from Titanium, or any other guys who are playing in enterprise mobility. If you guys have introductions that you can make for me, I'd really appreciate. If you want to be part of this, organizing this meetup, that would also be really helpful. Next meetup is next month. It's a monthly meetup, and October 17th, Friday, 6 p.m. We will have a presentation from Appery.io. So Appery.io is very exciting in enterprise mobility. They have a UI framework which is completely cloud-based. Not just UI framework, they can help you build the complete mobile app on the cloud, and they have the framework to integrate into your corporate systems. So Appri.io will be coming in next month. The following month, we have commitment already from SAP. SAP also has, through an acquisition, a mobile platform. I think Afaria, if I remember the name correctly. So SAP has committed to come and present as well, perhaps in the next month, the following month, in November. But I want to have at least 2 speakers per month, and I'm willing to fill in every month for my startup. But I would really want warm introductions into any other organization who are playing in enterprise mobility space, so we can invite them and have a really meaningful presentation, meaningful discussion, so everyone can learn different issues that are related to enterprise mobility going forward. So it's a very community-driven meetup. It's not an organization-driven meetup. So every one of you are encouraged to participate. Please reach out to me after this meeting or any other time you're comfortable, and let's discuss how to run this meetup going forward together. So with that, I'd like to again thank Ben, Green Factory, and we'll close and we'll have 1 hour of social, drink more beer. I'm hoping it's more chill now, and mingle together and discuss more about enterprise mobility. Thanks everyone for coming in.